riding down Highway 61. Sides of the roads all lined with fields, nothing but sunset in the windshield. Feel it as soon as I ride into town. This is where I go to slow down. Miles and miles of soybeans and corn. I'm in the place where the blues was born. About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
All right, guys. Hey, we're back here at the Crappie Expo 2020 down here in Branson, Missouri. I'm Justin Berry.
Brad Chappell here.
And
Matt Rogers.
Matt Rogers, man. 23-year-old. How long you been crappie fishing for?
I think it'll be 6 years now.
6 years? And how many tournaments have you won?
Oh, have to think about it for a while. I've won several. I've been fortunate enough to win a national championship and an ACT. I've won about everything that I've wanted to.
Really?
Besides a Crappie Expo. I'm coming up short every year.
Is that your next go? You want to get at the Expo?
Yeah, and after last year's, I really was like, I'm going to put in the work, and unfortunately, I had some boat issues down here and stuff, but
Down here you had boat issues?
Yeah.
What happened?
My big motor had some issues on day 2 of the National Championship Crappie Masters in West Monroe, Louisiana. Not sure what's going on. Gonna get it fixed and be ready for the next one, and be 100% ready mentally, physically, and with all my equipment. Never have everything ready. That's the big thing. Jerry Hancock and Paul Beer that won this one. I mean, putting in the work. They work their butts off, and a lot of everybody does, and that's hard to put on a scale and measure. Who worked harder and who deserved it more. It comes whoever did. I believe prospers in the end. Jerry is a guide, full-time guide, and they're amazing fishermen, analytical. He pays attention to a lot of detail, and they put in the work. They got here and they weren't scared of the rain. Like I said on stage yesterday, that weather it separates the men from the boys, and I found out I'm a boy this week.
Oh my gosh. But Brad's been really excited. He's been wanting to tell me that we've both been wanting to get you on air here. So I'm going to let him start off and start pounding you some questions. I'm sure he's got a bunch.
Well, you think of the sport of crappie fishing for the last 3 or 4 years, and your name's always in the running. If not at the top of the list, it's right there next to the top of the list. And, you're a younger generation crappie fisherman that's come up and really is putting a whooping on a lot of these older guys, including myself, with this sport. What are some of the things that got you to that level?
I think it's probably that crappie fishing was my escape from reality. So realistically, it wasn't like a major goal to go out there and win every tournament. It was that I'm getting to do something that I love, and I put in the work. I mean, I went out this morning and I wanted to see kind of one of the places I want to go if there was fish there. I found standing timber. I found fish, just didn't find big ones. I had to limp the boat out there, but, I went. I used to go after every tournament on Truman Lake. I'd go back out, and I might go back through the same place that I just fished, but fish it differently to see if a certain technique didn't work. Or, one of my favorite things was finding something that had fish on it and trying stuff to see what they will bite and what they won't. I mean, it never ends. Developing your theory and trying to prove it wrong, I think, is what makes somebody, dangerous. I think that's what makes them good is it doesn't matter if they think it works. They're willing to try to make it not work so they can find something else that'll work. I think that's a a big part of the game, especially crappie fishing now. We're having to find so many things to try because we got live scope. We can go find a fish suspended, and 10 people might have messed with him.
Right.
I've chased fish down for an hour before I've gotten a bite.
You chased one fish down for a whole hour?
Oh, yeah. I won the 2-day Crappie Masters back in June on Truman. The second day, I went to a stake bed way off of a tree row that was getting beat up, thinking, there's going to be several fish in it, getting pressured, pushed into it. And there was 2 stake beds there. One had 3 fish, one had 1. They wouldn't even look at it. The 3 fish, I sat there for probably 20 minutes, couldn't get them to do anything. Luckily, I moved the other one, and I got one of them, the one fish that was in it, to leave. Whenever I got a jig in front of me, he took off. I followed him right at about an hour, and I bet it was...
How big do you think it was, or how big was that?
It was a 170.
And
yeah. I mean, I stayed on and off of him for about 20 minutes. I'd see another fish, turn off, and go. But I bet I worked that individual fish for 20 solid minutes before I got him to eat. The year before, I did the same thing, followed one about 100 yards, and it ended up being a 2-pounder. Maybe he finally decided to bite. I don't know what it is, but I try so many things whenever I get that fish to move and leave.
So you got rods sitting there waiting with different baits?
Yeah.
All right, that ain't working. Let me pick up this another rod. Throw it right in front of them.
I always keep lots of different Clay Gann and Todd Froby. Those are some sticks. They're really, really good Texas fishermen. And anywhere. They beat my butt a lot. But a big thing is changing stuff up. I might throw something with a spinner on it with a little swim bait. That way it comes by him fast. Brad is a super good longliner, knows all about the reaction bite, making them react to it. There's times a lot of times you get so used to one technique, you forget a lot about a lot of stuff. And like this week, I forgot about a lot of stuff that I used to use on Stockton Lake, right by home. That's just almost as clear as Table Rock. And a reaction is a lot. Probably a higher percentage of getting that fish to commit to it as to holding a lure over the top of them and making them sit there and look at it. That's why Eric Cagle was casting to him. That made come by him, and then they eventually just have to decide to go eat it. I was using a 16-foot rod, getting on them, because sometimes some of the fish that were on wood didn't necessarily want to go too far from the tree. Some of them I had to make commit right there, and a big problem, I was using like 1/80ths and 1/24ths, and I didn't have any spinners on any of them. I didn't have any individual blades that I could tie with a loop knot on there to cause a little more flash or vibration and make them eat it. I found that plastic, I'm a huge hair jig guy. I found that plastic was working better for me down here, that I felt like they were reacting to it. And we were pretty beat down from the rain and whatnot. I finally got some rain gear, and I'm going to talk about in a little bit, that I got to put on and I got to go out and like work hard the last day of reef fishing. And we got on one spot that had a whole pile of fish in it, and my partner Jeff Lewis, he's a super, super good fisherman, has won a lot of stuff on Truman Lake. He was fishing a plastic, and I was fishing hair, and he caught 2 or 3 fish, and I was like, stay right here, don't let the boat move, I'll try something. I tied on plastic and started catching fish, and that right there was a little key factor.
What was that factor here as far as what did they want here?
I used a Bobby Garland itty bitty. I actually used I personally don't like sickle hooks, not saying they don't work, but I used a sickle hook on one of the days of fishing, and it didn't do it. I couldn't get it to stick them good. But I was using the Bobby Garland itty bitty jig head and then some mad crappie jigs and a 1/32. But the itty bitty, if you got them, it was going to get them good, and it was going to get them in the roof of the mouth.
Right.
I was using, when I cast it, I was using an 1/8 ounce tungsten weight above. And I'd cast it out, and when you got to flip them out, kind of swing them out so you don't get them all tangled up with that weight there.
Right.
But on my dipping rod that I was using a 16-foot rod. And I don't do that, but Grenada ACT, I used an 18-foot rod.
Good Lord.
My
Gonna need
gosh.
shoulder surgery.
And I'll tell you a fascinating deal about a fish there that I chased forever. But like those little jig heads, it's hard to get something that I'm gonna work with somebody, because some of those hooks are they have to make them so small, so thin that they bend out easy. And I was bending out on a lot of, if you get hung up and you pull it off and pop it off, you can bend it back, but it's better to just go ahead and tie on a new hook, because once you bend it, it's easier to get bent. There was a few things that I had two things that helped me, which was day 2, I finally figured out that they were crappie that were down 24 foot. Before, I was like, there's no way with the water conditions, and I just did not think that those were crappie. And I should have known better. Being that deep and on these wood, they were so tight to the cover, and a lot of them are black crappie. They get really, really tight against the cover. I just wasn't paying attention, really. And day 2, later in day 2, I figured that out, and I dropped down 24 foot and started catching a lot more fish. I think if I would have done that on day 1, had that figured out, along with the little bait, I probably would have done a little better. I didn't have had one spot that I was catching fish in, and a couple other teams were in there. I mean, there's probably 6 boats, and we milked it for what it was worth. We dried it up pretty quick.
All right. Do you use scent like when it comes to hard bait like this?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Was I chased a fish on Truman in the one pole ultimate challenge, so it would have been in 2019. And I chased this fish. I caught him, pulled him up, and he came off. And then I went ahead and kept chasing him. He just come up, look at it. Finally put a crappie nibbler on, and he come up, committed to it, and I caught him. And I won big fish with him. Or no, I don't think I did not get big fish with that one. I think Robert Carlisle won big fish with it. I had a 209, he had a 212. But I do believe that some stuff like that can make certain fish commit. I think each big fish is kind of its own individual personality, and you just gotta test different stuff with them.
Right. What about blades? We hear a lot of guys, live scoping, but not very many guys have mentioned bladed jigs or using blades when it comes to live scoping.
Well, we don't have anything innovated yet that's like a chatterbait. That'd be a really good idea for somebody to try to develop a little tiny chatterbait that has a little blade just like that where it vibrates. I really think some fish, if they're in a dormant state. I know you fished with Josh Jones in a tournament, and there was fish that were like asleep.
Yep.
I've found fish like that. I think something like that can be a technique that you can try. Everything you're just trying, it's all, like I said, a theory that you just kind of come up with. You try it. I used a slip cork a lot down here. I would cast out. I didn't put a bobber stop on it. Cast it out, watch the jig go down, and then once it got down, then I'd pull, and then it'd stop it. But it would keep it coming back really slow. So it could keep it at the same level. Instead of that bait falling down and those crappie losing interest, it fell up. And or it wouldn't fall up, but it would slow down where I could just keep pulling it at the same level as they were. And that made a big difference for catching fish. I wasn't in the place where I wanted to be. I wanted to make about a 50-mile run every day, and I was only able to make about an 8-mile run. And so I just there wasn't the quality of fish in there like there was up. I fished the Long Creek arm. I'm not sure exactly where it got one out of, but it was either the Kings or the James River.
Kings.
I picked a place up the James River that I really thought would be really good, and I know the third place team was in that general area. And I just didn't get to make it up there, but it is what it is, and I had an absolute blast. I mean, the guy I fished with, Jeff Lewis, and me and him get along like two peas in a pod. We laugh and laugh and laugh. That's what it's all about.
Oh yeah. Still having fun doing the sport is key, and being competitive, isn't it?
Yeah, and I had 2 kiddos, and I've slowed down a little bit. Don't get to go fishing near as much, and so I've lost a little bit of an edge, but I'm slowly getting it back. As soon as I get home, I'm gonna be ready to go fishing. I'm going to be ready to go to Truman. I know they're on fire up there right now, and there's a lot of big fish getting caught.
And I've been to Truman, but it's been a long time ago, and I remember, and of course I'm a long liner, so it's a whole different game, but I lost a crappie pole at 70 foot of water on standing timber of course it was sunk, but pulled a rod out of the boat, lost it at 70 foot, and I was thinking, well, 70 foot, I ain't got too much to worry about getting hung up, but I actually had a pole jump out of the boat at 70 foot of water. on a big log. But
There's a lot of standing timber in there.
and we're going to get right back to this in part 1, but we're going to go to a part 2 with you, and I want to dissect more of your actual setups. So you guys stay tuned. Part 2 is coming up, and hit that subscribe button. I'm pushing it this year more than we ever have, but we want to teach people. And this guy right here, if you want to learn live scope, you want to learn tournaments, or you just want to learn how to catch fish, he can do it.
I try.
Stay tuned for part 2, guys.
Holla.
About a mile from big muddy river, a place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel